On my wedding day, it wasn't me in the white dress kissing my husband, but somehow my childhood friend, Betty. Just go with the flow and forgive me. Yeah. It's a memory, a memory. I see. Then, let's make this a memorable ceremony for you. This is the story of how I surprised my husband Kevin and his childhood friend at our wedding. My name is Sarah. I work for a video production company and am in my 30s. I got married 3 years ago, and now I juggle work and being a housewife. I met my husband Kevin through work. At a year-end party with our business associates, I was feeling a bit left out and drinking alone in a corner. He was the one who approached me. We both had a passion for camping, so our conversation flowed easily. Soon, we started going out for meals together, and it didn't take long for us to start dating. Then, one day during a camping date, under the starry sky, "Sarah, will you marry me?" he proposed to me. It was the picture-perfect proposal. Of course, I happily said yes, and we started preparing for our wedding, including meeting each other's parents. But then, COVID-19 hit, and we couldn't have the wedding we had been looking forward to. So, we submitted our marriage certificate and started our newlywed life. During COVID-19, with mainly working from home, we spent most of our newlywed time at home. You'd think working from home as newlyweds would be relaxing, but not for Kevin. Being naturally active, he started getting stressed. Eventually, he stopped smiling and seemed irritated even when he wasn't working. His drinking also increased. I thought it was unhealthy and suggested a way to relieve his stress. "Hey, how about we go camping again? Camping isn't crowded, and it could be a nice change of pace." Kevin replied, "Yeah. But if we're going camping, I'd like it to be lively. We can't invite coworkers because of the situation." "Oh, I know. Can I invite my childhood friend? They're probably bored too. And don't worry, we'll set up separate tents." I assumed he was talking about a male friend he was comfortable with, so I immediately agreed. But I was shocked when we arrived at the campsite. "What? Your friend is a woman? This is Betty, my childhood friend. We grew up like siblings because we lived nearby. And she's always loved camping. Nice to meet you. I've been close with Kevin for a long time. Looking forward to today." Betty greeted us casually, but somehow their closeness was palpable. "Hello, I'm Sarah, his wife. Nice to meet you." I was surprised that the friend Kevin mentioned was a woman, but I thought it was possible. We set up our tents apart and kept our distance during meals. Though Betty claimed to like camping, she couldn't set up her tent alone, so Kevin helped her. I tried not to let it bother me, but every time I heard, "Kevin, you're so efficient. Thanks," it did bother me. Her voice seemed somewhat flirtatious. Though I didn't have any childhood friends of the opposite sex, maybe that's how it is when you've been close since childhood. After that, she started joining us every time we went camping. Sometimes at night, we'd drink, and she would lean on Kevin. Kevin would say, "You've had too much to drink. Go to your tent." So, I thought they were just really good friends. 2 years into our marriage, COVID-19 ended. Work returned to normal, and Kevin and I could commute as usual. With more chances to dine out, Kevin began drinking with colleagues after work more often. We finally decided to hold the wedding ceremony we had planned earlier. Though 2 years into our marriage seemed late to hold a ceremony, we wanted our parents to see us happy, and they, along with others, strongly encouraged us to have it for the memories. So, we decided to go ahead with the ceremony. The preparations were really tough. There were so many decisions to make: date, venue, dress, menu, guest list, that our weekends were almost entirely consumed by it. But Kevin, busy with work, often came home late and worked on weekends too. So, all the preparations fell to me. Kevin said, "Weddings are for the bride, right? Do whatever you want," leaving everything to me. "But there are your friends and coworkers among the guests, right? That's why I want you to help," I said. "No, really, you can do whatever you want. I'm counting on you." As he left everything to me, he suddenly remembered. "Oh, and make sure to invite Betty." And he said, "Don't you have other friends besides your childhood friend? Why only Betty?" This request gave me a bad feeling. "Betty? Okay, but don't you have other friends? Why are you so insistent about inviting just her?" "Yeah, she's been nagging me to make sure she's invited." When did he talk to her about this? I decided to dig a little deeper. "Have you been seeing her lately?" "What? No, I haven't seen her at all. I wonder how she's doing," he said. This made me even more suspicious. It's that woman's intuition. On the next day off, Kevin said he had to work again. So, I decided to investigate. I hoped my intuition was wrong. That day, "I'm going to the venue again today. I'll be back around evening. Can you come later?" I said. Kevin replied, "I have to finish a project this month, so I might be late again. Sorry for leaving it all to you. But if you decide everything, it'll all go perfectly." He was leaving everything to me again. Fine, if he's leaving it to me, I'll do what I think is right. I left the apartment early and watched the entrance from outside. Then, I saw a familiar woman enter the building. Yes, it was Betty. She entered smoothly, as if it wasn't her first time. If my intuition was wrong, I planned to go to the venue for real. But now, I couldn't. I called the venue and told them I couldn't make it today. Then I went to a cafe with a view of the apartment entrance to keep watch. 3 hours later, they came out, arm in arm. "This is..." I was shocked, but I followed them. They went into a restaurant. They sat by the window, so I could see them chatting and holding hands across the table. Unable to bear it, I walked into the restaurant. I approached them and said, "Oh, what are you two doing here? Kevin, aren't you supposed to be at work?" Acting as if I didn't know. Kevin quickly let go of her hand and said, "Ah, I was just taking a break from work. I ran into Betty, and we decided to grab a meal together." "Oh. Betty, long time no see. What brings you here today?" "I was just shopping around, then I suddenly bumped into Kevin. So, I thought I'd let him treat me to something nice." "Sarah, weren't you supposed to be at the venue today?" "Oh, I felt a bit tired, so I thought I'd head home early. And since you said you'd be late, I thought I'd grab dinner alone, but maybe we can eat together?" Kevin said, "Of course." But I didn't miss the look of dissatisfaction on Betty's face. Still, though suspicious, I had no proof. I checked the apartment when we got home, but found nothing incriminating. So, for now, I couldn't pursue it any further. But I wondered, how long had this been going on? Since they were childhood friends, they must have been close even before I met Kevin. After some thought, I decided to contact Jessica, a friend of Kevin's from college. Jessica was in the same camping club as Kevin during college and was invited to a group camping trip when Kevin and I had just started dating. He thought I'd enjoy it more with other women there. We hit it off and kept in touch occasionally. I invited Jessica out for drinks before the wedding. Though it was hard to bring up, she noticed I wasn't my usual cheerful self. Jessica asked, "You seem down. Is it pre-wedding jitters? I decided to take the plunge and ask. Yeah, something's bothering me. Do you know about Kevin's childhood friend? A woman named Betty. Oh, sure. She even joined our club a few times, even though she wasn't from our university. But whenever she came, everyone got on edge. Why? What happened? Well, she was really possessive. She'd block any other girl from talking to Kevin. Even though she was his girlfriend, it was a bit much. Everyone thought it was too much. Wait, Betty was his girlfriend? Yeah. Didn't you know? They've been together since high school. She'd come to our university all the time and was always with Kevin. What a shock. Betty wasn't just a childhood friend, but his ex-girlfriend. I told Jessica about what I had seen recently. Oh, that's a done deal. You think so too? Yeah. But your wedding is soon, right? What will you do? I need to gather evidence, whether I'm breaking them up or divorcing Kevin. Kevin had left all the preparations to me while he was enjoying himself with another woman. If he was letting me handle the wedding, he didn't plan on leaving me. If it went well, he'd keep the relationship going. But I refused to continue this way. I have to gather evidence, no matter what. Jessica, come shopping with me for a bit. I headed out to buy something. For the next few months, I continued to handle all the wedding preparations alone. Kevin probably never suspected that I was onto him. He kept saying he was busy with work, doing overtime on weekends and coming home late on weekdays. I acted as if I noticed nothing during this time. Then, the long-awaited wedding day arrived. I dressed in the pure white gown I had chosen myself. Since Kevin said I could do whatever I wanted, I chose the most luxurious dress I could find. As I was putting on my accessories and preparing my handkerchief, I realized I had taken Kevin's handkerchief by mistake. So, I went to Kevin's dressing room to give it to him. When I opened the door, there was a woman in a white dress, sitting on Kevin's lap, kissing his cheek as they took a commemorative photo. What? I couldn't help but voice my shock at the unexpected sight. What are you doing, Betty? And you too, Kevin. Kevin tried to explain. No, it's not like that. She's just a bit tipsy. Betty, seemingly a bit drunk. It just happened, forgive me, he said with a laugh. Kevin also tried to laugh it off. Yeah, it's just for fun. Oh, really? I felt my heart grow cold. If that's how they want to play it, fine. Any lingering doubts I had were completely gone. I'll end this relationship myself. After all the preparations I've made, I'll make this a wedding to remember. Finally, the ceremony started. Kevin and Betty sat there as if nothing had happened. But since Betty was wearing a white dress in the guest seats, the other guests were giving her puzzled looks. They probably thought she was just an ill-mannered woman. But they were about to learn the true extent of her and Kevin's lack of manners. The ceremony proceeded smoothly and reached its midpoint. Suddenly, the room went dark. Here is a surprise from the bride, Sarah. And an announcement played. A large monitor appeared, displaying the title The Journey of Two. I turned to Kevin and Betty. This is my gift to you. Don't you know my profession? And I smiled. Yes, my job is video editing. Filming and editing videos are my specialties. Kevin, who had no idea, looked expectantly. What? He asked. But what appeared on the screen was footage of Kevin and Betty cozily together at our home. Yes, this video is the journey of two for Betty and Kevin. What's this? The crowd began to murmur. On the screen, Betty and Kevin were sitting on the bed, holding hands and talking. Aren't you going to break up with Sarah? Divorce is a hassle, right? Besides, with her around, housework is easier. I can play all I want on my days off. You have a boyfriend too, don't you? Well, I'd honestly prefer you over him. But my boyfriend buys me all sorts of things. I asked him to buy me a luxury bag the other day, and he said he would. Look, he bought me this bag too. Wow, you're making him spend money on you? Well, the best thing about my boyfriend is his good job. He should spend money on me. The murmuring in the room grew louder. Kevin was flustered and restless as the video continued to play. Where should we go today? Well, we went to the new place last time, so how about the hotel at the next station today? They have a lot of room service menu options there, which is great. The next scene showed the interior of a car. They had been using my car to go to hotels. When I first found out, I was overwhelmed with anger, but I saved it all for this day. The footage and audio from the dashboard camera captured everything perfectly. They didn't even bother deleting the dashboard camera footage, which felt like an insult. As the video continued to play. What is this? It's fake! Kevin finally shouted. Stop it! But at that moment, two figures with furious expressions appeared beside Kevin. It was his parents. Kevin, what the hell is this? No, this must be a mistake. How could you do such a thing when you have someone like Sarah? Elsewhere in the room, another commotion was brewing. One of the people arguing was Betty. Stop it! Betty, what the hell is this? The person arguing with Betty was her boyfriend, who was also one of Kevin's friends and a guest at the wedding. This was news to me, but it worked out perfectly. This is a lie! Don't believe it! How can you tell me not to believe it? Did you choose me just because of my job? That luxury brand bag you asked me to buy recently makes more sense now. No, it's not like that. Please believe me. Then give me that bag back. The one I bought for you. Well, how can I trust you now? We're done. With that, the man stormed out of the venue. Betty, her face red with anger and humiliation, turned to me and demanded, "What the hell is this? This is your doing, isn't it?" "Yes. I prepared this to surprise Kevin and you." "Wasn't the surprise a success?" "What the hell have you done?" "Because of you, my boyfriend dumped me." "What are you talking about?" "You're the one who's been sleeping with someone else's husband right in front of your boyfriend. The evidence is all here. And just now, you kissed my husband in the waiting room, didn't you?" At these words, my in-laws, who were nearby, glared at Kevin with fury. "Kevin! You! No! She seduced me! I told her I was married, but she kept coming on to me." Kevin tried to blame Betty to save himself. "What are you talking about? You said you preferred me," Betty retorted. "I never said that. Sarah, believe me." Kevin, exhausted and drenched in sweat and tears, pleaded with me. But I had no intention of believing him. There's all the evidence right here. Regardless of who seduced whom, you crossed the line, didn't you? I can't trust you anymore. I want a divorce," I said, smiling. "And I'll be sending you the bill for this wedding and the alimony." With those words, I turned on my heel and walked back to the waiting room, my dress billowing behind me. This pure white dress is likely the first and last I'll ever wear. Despite the chaos of the ceremony, at least I got to wear the most exquisite dress. As I was looking at myself in the mirror, someone knocked and entered the waiting room. "Jessica, you did it. That was amazing." Hearing her words, I felt a wave of relief, and tears started to well up in my eyes. She had been helping me with preparations all the way to today. She gently patted my back as I cried. These weren't tears of frustration, but rather tears of victory. I had managed to shock and unsettle Kevin and Betty. Though I wasn't lucky with my husband, I was fortunate to have good friends through him. Later, I filed for divorce and demanded alimony from Kevin through a lawyer. I also billed him for the wedding expenses, which surprised him greatly. Of course, it did. He had told me to do as I pleased, so I had chosen very expensive dresses and wedding favors. It was his fault for leaving everything to me. Since many of his co-workers attended the ceremony, rumors spread at work about him being a cheating husband who got owned by his wife, making it hard for him to stay, and he eventually quit his job. As for Betty, I also demanded alimony from her. Since she was unemployed, she couldn't afford it even after selling her luxury brand items bought by other men. Her parents had to cover the alimony, but they told her she had to pay it back herself or they would disown her. She had no choice but to start working at a rural inn, factory, or farm, somewhere she could live and work. Given that she had never lived alone or worked before, she must be struggling significantly. A few years later, though I was fed up with the idea of marriage, an unexpected encounter happened. I met Jessica's brother, Thomas. Jessica and I had become close friends, often going camping together. One time, Thomas joined us on a camping trip, and the food he prepared was incredibly delicious. It turned out he was a chef at a restaurant conveniently located near my office. Captivated by Thomas's cooking, I started visiting his restaurant frequently. With Jessica playing matchmaker, Thomas and I began dating. Now, we're married, and I get to enjoy his delicious homemade meals on our days off. Hurry up and catch the culprit. And make sure the hospital takes full responsibility too. Have you contacted the police yet? No, I thought we'd wait for you to arrive and discuss it first. We will consider the hospital's response to Diana from now on. Of course, we will do everything we can. What do you mean by everything we can? Be specific. We're going to figure that out right now. There are surveillance cameras in Diana's room, right? Yes, severely injured patients who can't move on their own are usually placed in rooms with cameras in most hospitals. Since they can't press the nurse call button or call for help if their condition suddenly changes. You missed that 1 in a million chance, meaning the cameras are useless. It's impossible to monitor the cameras 24/7. But we always keep the recordings. This is so we can check what happened if there's a problem. So, if we check the cameras, there's a good chance the culprit will be on them, right? I think that's very likely. Can I see it too? How about watching it together with the police? My Diana had been in a persistent vegetative state since an accident 5 years ago. Yet, Diana is now pregnant. Overwhelmed by the situation, Timothy is constantly agitated and always confronting the doctors. This isn't getting us anywhere, so I decided to talk to the doctor instead. There are cameras in the room, so it seems like we could identify the culprit quickly by checking the footage. However, Timothy interrupts our conversation. I think checking the footage is pointless. Why? The cameras are blatantly installed in the room, right? There's no way the culprit didn't notice them. They must have taken some measures to do something so terrible. But we can't just not check. It's pointless. And even if the culprit is on the footage, do you really want to see what they did? I don't want to see that, but... Timothy is right. If we check the footage, we'll see something we don't want to see. It's better to leave this to the police. We finished talking to the doctor and went back to Diana's room. At that moment, Timothy had a nasty, villainous look on his face. There was something off about Timothy during the conversation with the doctor earlier too. My trust in Timothy is crumbling. Moreover, I overhear Timothy talking to someone later. The content of that conversation was utterly unacceptable. I'm Mary. I'm 42 years old and a housewife. My husband, Timothy, is a year older and works for a company. Timothy and I were friends in a college club. Timothy was a leader that everyone relied on, admired by many girls. And I was one of those many girls. With so many rivals, many of whom were cute, I was content just to watch Timothy from afar. However, for some reason, Timothy approached me. "Why did you choose me out of all those popular girls?" I once asked him. "Mary, you get discouraged easily, right? I just couldn't leave you alone." I had always been self-conscious about my tendency to get easily discouraged. But it seemed that this personality trait worked in my favor, unintentionally activating the girl who needs to be protected appeal, a classic in romantic strategies. After a year of dating, Timothy became a working adult. Since there's only a year difference, I quickly followed suit. However, there was a big difference between being a college student and a working adult, and I felt like Timothy had become an adult first, making him seem even more reliable. In reality, Timothy, who had become a working adult first, was very reliable. I can't do it anymore. No matter what I do, I can't remember anything. I keep making mistakes, and my seniors are always angry at me. It's so hard to go to work. In my first year as a working adult, with my weak mental state, I naturally felt a constant sense of gloom. If my current self could be beside my younger self, I'd encourage her, telling her that it's normal to feel that work is tough and not wanting to go to the office. However, speaking for those with a weak mental state, during such times, it's like being in the depths of negativity, where even standing up is painful. Some people might drop out entirely because of this. But I had Timothy. The job of a new employee is to cause trouble. You should only start worrying when no one says anything to you anymore. It's much scarier when they stop saying anything because they've given up on you. The fact that they still say things means they expect you to be able to do it. Also, if your current workplace really doesn't suit you, it's okay to change jobs, you know? It's not the era where sticking to the same company is seen as a virtue. It's still easier to find a job right after graduating from college. Timothy never told me to hang in there. Instead, he always reminded me not to overdo it. I had believed that giving my all was the right thing to do, but his words felt like a fog lifting from my eyes. Thanks to Timothy's advice, I was able to relax a bit and continue my job. I thought there was no one more reliable than him. 3 years after I started working, we had a shotgun marriage. We had been dating for almost 5 years, and as work was settling down, I could feel the atmosphere of marriage coming, so I wasn't surprised when I found out I was pregnant. Rather, I thought it was a great opportunity to get married. Neither of us had met each other's parents, but we had told them about each other when we were students. They also knew we were still together after becoming working adults. So, when we informed them of the pregnancy, they were not angry but instead happy. My parents had wanted me to get married soon, and his parents were eager to see their grandchild's face. After informing our parents, I wanted to have the wedding before my belly got too big, so we hurriedly prepared for the wedding. We successfully had the wedding, and then I gave birth to our daughter, Diana. Diana. You're always so cute, Dot. Hey, she just fell asleep. Don't wake her up. Timothy was obsessed with Diana. Because of this, he would rush home from work at lightning speed and wouldn't stay more than 3 feet away from Diana on weekends. He doted on Diana so much that I often worried he might spoil her too much. However, his obsession had its upsides, as Timothy actively took care of Diana. Thanks to that, I was able to smoothly return to work after my maternity leave. Diana continued to grow up healthy and strong, reaching the age of 12. She was supposed to start middle school soon. But now, she spends every day in a hospital bed. Diana was hit by a car while walking home from after-school tutoring with two friends. They were crossing the crosswalk when the signal turned green, but the driver was looking at their smartphone and didn't notice the light. Although I don't like to use the phrase, in the midst of misfortune, two of her friends only suffered fractures and were not in any life-threatening condition. However, Diana ended up in a persistent vegetative state. Her eyes are open, but she has no cognitive function and cannot move her body at all. I felt that Diana had taken on the misfortune meant for her friends, and I resented the two friends who were unharmed. I know I'm way off base. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to keep my sanity. You stay with Diana. I'll handle everything that's a hassle. I'm sorry. Please. I was barely able to stay by Diana's side, my mind on the brink of collapse. If I had to deal with the accident details or her treatment now, I knew I wouldn't be able to keep it together. Timothy understood my fragile mental state and took care of everything, from dealing with the person responsible for the accident to all the hospital paperwork. Timothy really is reliable. But he must be struggling too. I feel guilty for pushing all the responsibilities onto him. Feeling ashamed of my own helplessness, I inch closer to a complete mental breakdown. After some time, Diana's compensation was paid out. This money was to be used for Diana's future living expenses, so Timothy set up a separate account. The account Timothy showed me had tens of millions of dollars listed. Normally, this would be an enormous amount of money. This money ensures that we don't have to worry about Diana's immediate needs. While I'm grateful for it, looking at those figures fills me with emptiness. So, we'll pay for her hospitalization and other expenses from here. That's how it will be. We can't request more money if this runs out, right? What if it does? Can we cover Diana's hospital bills with our income? It feels like this amount is a countdown on how long we can be with Diana. Don't say that. Diana will recover before this money runs out. She might not. Even if she doesn't, we were told to keep talking to her for 10 or 20 years, never give up. They said people have recovered after 30 years. Stop talking so pessimistically. I'm sorry. You still seem really stressed. I'll keep handling the details, so you just stay with Diana. I'm sorry. I was on the verge of a mental breakdown. There was no way I could work in this state, so I quit my job to become a housewife and stay by Diana's side. But honestly, I didn't do much around the house, so it was more accurate to say I was unemployed. I stayed with Diana all the time, while Timothy continued working. At first, Timothy would visit the hospital every day after work. But after a while, he started coming less often, and my frustration with him grew. A year after Diana's accident, my frustration reached its limit. Why don't you come to the hospital more? Don't you care about Diana? You come home smelling of alcohol. What are you thinking? I unleashed a year's worth of pent-up frustration on Timothy. But it seemed I wasn't the only one holding in resentment. You could at least do some housework. Look at this living room. It's filthy and cluttered. It's not just here, it's the whole house. I'm coming home late because you don't cook, so I eat out. And you're not the only one hurting over Diana. Can't I escape with a little drink? I was clearly in the wrong. Timothy's shouting snapped me back to reality. Looking around, I finally saw how dirty the room was. I'm sorry. I'm not the only one suffering, am I? And I've been selfish, dumping everything on you. I apologize for yelling. You were right, Mary. I haven't been going to the hospital as much as I should have. From now on, I'll make more of an effort to visit Diana. By airing out our grievances, we both felt a sense of relief. This clarity allowed us to reflect on our actions, renewing our determination to work together for Diana's sake. Timothy had not been visiting the hospital for a few months, but he began coming 2 or 3 times a week. I started managing things at home and took up a part-time job. However, the hospital dealings were complicated and, having missed the initial explanations, I couldn't grasp everything. Thus, I left those responsibilities to Timothy. In return, I took charge of everything else. For a while, this arrangement worked. But soon, problems began to surface again. You didn't visit the hospital this week, did you? You missed last week too. Is work keeping you that busy? Yeah, it's been really hectic. That's why I'm getting home so late. Timothy had stopped visiting the hospital again and was coming home late. Although he claimed work was the reason, he often smelled of alcohol when he came back. While it would be easy to voice my frustrations again, I understood that Timothy had his struggles too. Given the circumstances, it was understandable that he might be experiencing emotional ups and downs. Being someone who often dealt with my own emotional fluctuations, I could empathize with Timothy's feelings. I believed that in time, he would start visiting the hospital again. With that in mind, I decided to watch over Timothy. However, this meant I couldn't rely on him for support during his low periods. I continued going to the hospital daily and working part-time. Gradually, I adapted to the routine, but my tendency to overdo things led to me falling ill. You never change, do you? I'm sorry. No, I'm the one who broke my promise to visit the hospital. From now on, I'll go on weekends without fail. You need to take a break. But you're the one working more. Everyone has different limits. It's not about who works more. If you don't overdo it and rest properly, you won't get sick like this. Plus, if you go to Diana looking exhausted, she will worry about you. You're right. Once again, we both reflected on our actions, and Timothy resumed his hospital visits. 3 years after Diana's accident, Timothy kept his promise and visited the hospital every weekend. When Timothy was at the hospital, I rested at home. This wasn't because we were taking Diana's situation lightly or neglecting her. Diana's treatment was a long-term process. In these 3 years, I learned that maintaining efficiency in our lives was crucial for enduring this long battle. As for Diana's condition, I noticed some improvement. Diana, it's a lovely day today, isn't it? We couldn't go outside last week because of the rain. Are you happy? I pushed Diana's wheelchair through the hospital courtyard. Diana started going for walks. A male nurse named Eric always accompanied us on these walks. Although female nurses primarily took care of Diana, Eric helped with moving her from the bed to the wheelchair. I saw a joy in Diana's face as she basked in the sunlight. Others might not notice any change in her expression. But to me, it seemed like Diana was smiling. Previously, there was no change in her expression, so I took this as a sign of her recovery. Moreover, the signs of her recovery were not limited to her expressions. When I talked to Diana while holding her hand, it felt like she was responding with blinks. Although it could be mistaken, there were also noticeable changes. Diana became able to eat again. Even though eating means she could swallow paste-like food through swallowing training, The main source of nutrition was still through a feeding tube. Nevertheless, it gave me hope and expectations. After finishing our walk and returning to the hospital room, a female nurse came in. This month's hospital bill hasn't been paid yet. It must be Timothy who forgot to pay it. I usually leave the communication with the hospital to Timothy. Therefore, I just needed to call him and let him know about the missed payment. However, Timothy has been on a business trip since yesterday. He could probably make the transfer from his trip, but I felt bad about bothering him for just a payment. I decided to go home and look for Diana's account where her money was deposited. Oh, it's not here. I thought it would be in the drawer where we keep our joint accounts, but I couldn't find Diana's account. Oh, it must be there. There is a shelf where we keep documents and contracts used during hospitalizations and accidents. Diana's account must be there. As expected, I found Diana's account in the place I had predicted. However, the contents were different from what I had expected. Huh? It's already this low? When I checked the account balance, it had already dropped to less than half. I understand that hospitalizations cost money. However, nearly $100,000 disappearing in 3 years is strange. I began to rummage through the shelves again to find documents that detail Diana's hospitalization costs. Then, from the shelf, a large number of membership cards, business cards, and coupons from sexual entertainment establishments came out. It seemed Timothy had been frequenting strip clubs. When I searched for the names on the membership cards and business cards, I found some were from clubs. Judging by the decrease in the money, it looked like he had also been spending on branded goods. When he smelled of alcohol, it was a club, and when he didn't smell of alcohol but came home late, it was a strip club. The unnecessary thoughts made me feel sick. If it were just strip clubs or clubs, some might get furious and make him promise not to go again. However, this was an amount that couldn't be dismissed so lightly. More than anything, I couldn't forgive him for touching Diana's money. I decided to confront Timothy when he returned from his business trip. What's the meaning of this? Well, when Diana had the accident, you were going through a really negative phase, remember? I was so stressed out by you. So, I used it as stress relief. So, it has been since then? I've had my breakdowns, but I haven't been negative since then, have I? Well, about a year after that, we had that big fight, right? I stopped spending money then. But once you indulge even once, you can't go back, you can't resist. I was ready to confront Timothy about using Diana's money and even consider divorce. However, the cause of his spending was my mental breakdown that had put stress on him. Understanding that I was also part of the cause, I couldn't get completely angry at him. I see. I understand. But there won't be a next time. You're forgiving me? When Diana recovers, are you planning to tell her we got divorced? Right, you're right. But, as I said before, there really won't be a next time. Next time, I'll show no mercy and divorce you. I'll take over Diana's account. When there's a payment, let me know the recipient and the amount. I'll handle it from now on. I hate how weak-willed I am in these situations. Timothy understood my personality and probably knew this would happen. However, even if I knew, I couldn't fight against my nature, so I made a compromise and told myself this was fine for now. 5 years after the accident. Since Timothy's incident of embezzling money, he has been more subdued. I hold Diana's account and have significantly reduced his allowance, so he can't frequent strip clubs anymore. Sometimes he comes home late, but he shouldn't have any money on hand, so he's probably just drinking within his allowance. I continue to work part-time while visiting Diana. It's raining today, so we can't go for a walk. I say this while wiping Diana's body, as usual. When I was about to wipe her belly as usual, I noticed that Diana's belly was swollen. Diana can eat, though it's in paste form. Even so, she can't eat enough to make her stomach swell. I thought her unnaturally swollen belly might be due to some illness, so I called a nurse. After that, a doctor examined her and revealed something unbelievable. Diana was pregnant. Of course, Diana, in a persistent vegetative state, couldn't do such a thing herself. I immediately called Timothy. When Timothy heard about Diana's pregnancy over the phone, he flew over at the speed of light and yelled at the doctor the moment he saw him. "What the hell is going on with the security in this hospital?" The doctor shrank back, unable to respond. Timothy, showing no mercy, continued. "You've contacted the police, right? Catch the perpetrator quickly. And the hospital will have to take appropriate responsibility for this." The doctor just nodded in response to Timothy's fury. Timothy's anger was justified, and I was angry too. However, just yelling wouldn't solve anything. I calmed Timothy down and talked to the doctor. "Have you contacted the police?" "No, I thought it would be best to wait until Timothy arrived and we discussed it. We will consider Diana's care from now on. Of course, we will do everything we can." "What do you mean by everything we can? Be specific." "We're going to figure that out right now." I stopped Timothy, who was getting unnecessarily confrontational, and continued the conversation. "There are surveillance cameras in Diana's room, right?" "Yes, I believe we informed you when she was admitted." "Those cameras are for security, but also to monitor the patient's condition. Patients who are severely incapacitated and can't move on their own are often placed in rooms with cameras in most hospitals. Since they can't press the nurse call button or call for help in case of sudden changes." "You're missing the point of having cameras if you can't catch something like this." I was getting tired of having to stop him all the time, so I glared at Timothy to make him quiet. "We can't monitor the cameras 24/7, but they are always recording. It's to check what happened in cases like this. So, if we check the cameras, there's a chance the perpetrator will be on them, right?" "I think that's quite possible." "Can I see it too?" "How about checking with the police?" This made me feel a bit relieved, thinking the perpetrator would be caught soon. However, Timothy ruined it. "Checking the footage will be useless." "Why?" "The camera is right there in the room, isn't it? The perpetrator wouldn't miss that. They must have done something to avoid it before committing such a horrible act." "But we can't just not check." "Checking is pointless. Besides, even if the culprit was caught on camera, do you really want to see what they did to Diana?" "No. I don't want to see that." "In that case, leave it to the police. We should focus on the hospital and what comes next. Just like always, you stay with Diana, and I'll handle things with the hospital. Let's wait for the hospital to give us their best response. Considering their lack of security, we should expect significant action from them. If they try to give us anything less, we'll push back." Timothy took my hand and led me back to Diana's hospital room. Once we were back in the room, Timothy started to smirk unpleasantly. He was snapping at the doctors and putting pressure on the hospital to get the best possible conditions for Diana. With a mixture of fear and hope that I wouldn't hear the answer I dreaded, I cautiously asked Timothy, "Are you planning to get money from the hospital?" "Of course, isn't that obvious? Are you saying you don't want it?" "It's not that. I think we should get what we rightfully need, but watching you, it feels like you'll demand more than that." "And what's wrong with that? It's only right to take as much as we can. This is like Diana earning her own money using her body. But she can't speak up for herself. So, it's our duty as her parents to get as much as we can from the hospital, don't you think? Timothy seemed to be so immersed in his visits to strip clubs that it had tainted his mind. I hold no prejudice against women who work at strip clubs. There are certainly those who take pride in their work. However, Diana never wanted to be pregnant. Yet Timothy claimed she had earned money using her body. My trust in Timothy was crumbling away. Can money and greed really corrupt a person this much? I skipped work to be here, so I need to call the office. As Timothy left the room, his back looked like that of a movie villain to me. It's okay, sweetheart. I'll make sure everything's all right. I held Diana's hand, offering words witut any real foundation. I knew better than anyone that I couldn't do anything, being neither a doctor, a police officer, nor a lawyer. I sighed and looked out at the courtyard from the window. That's when I saw Timothy. He was heading towards the far end of the courtyard. It seemed he was planning to go to a hidden part of the building. But if it was just a call, he didn't need to go that far. He wasn't even dialing while walking. My suspicions grew, and I hurriedly followed Timothy. Concealing myself, I saw Timothy meeting with a male nurse. It was Eric, the nurse who always helped with Diana's walks. He must have arrived while I was coming down from the room. I listened intently to their conversation. What I heard was unbelievable. My feelings boiled down to pure rage upon learning the truth. A few days after Diana's pregnancy was discovered, Diana underwent an abortion. Though the risks were high, the procedure was successful. In my heart, I felt relief, believing Diana was on the road to recovery and regaining her strength, so I made a victory pose. As for the crucial hospital room camera, just as Timothy had said, there was no suspicious figure caught. In fact, there were no interruptions or signs of tampering or editing in the footage. It was as if Diana had been impregnated by a ghost. However, DNA testing of the fetus revealed that the culprit was not a ghost, but Eric, the male nurse who helped with Diana's walks. The perpetrator was Eric, wasn't it? What a stupid thing to do. Well, thanks to him, we get money from the hospital. We should thank him. With harsh words, Timothy acted as if the case was already resolved since the perpetrator was caught. However, the real resolution of the case starts now. When Timothy and I were at home, the doorbell rang. Is it a delivery? I think it's your guest. Can you get it? Huh? Oh, okay. Timothy gave me a puzzled look before heading to the front door. I followed behind him. What? What's going on? When Timothy opened the door, a police officer was standing there. Did you call them? Timothy turned around abruptly, showing me a surprised expression. I didn't call them, but I got a heads up that they would come soon. They asked if you were home. What do you mean? I overheard you and Eric talking at the edge of the courtyard. The edge of the courtyard? That's right. I heard you allowing Eric to do terrible things to Diana for money. What were you thinking, selling Diana's body? The day Diana's pregnancy was discovered, I overheard a conversation between Timothy and Eric. What should we do? I never thought she would get pregnant. Seriously. What were you thinking? Now the perfect plan of taking Diana for a walk, avoiding the security cameras, and pretending I, as her father, was just on a walk with her is ruined. Am I going to get caught? Probably, isn't that what you said? That DNA testing can be done even on the fetus. You'll get arrested, and I'll lose the allowance you give me. My wife has taken control of our account, and I get only a little allowance. Your money was my last resort. Now I can't even go to the strip club. This sucks. Well, thanks to you, I'll probably trick the hospital into giving me money. But don't break your promise. I'm going to tell the police that I did it by myself, right? That's right. Not only did I let you have sex with a 17-year-old virgin, but I let you do it for a cheap price, so it's only natural that you should be the only one guilty, right? Just make sure you keep your end of the deal. I know. If you get caught and get out later, I'll let you have it again. And don't worry, I'll remember the discount for taking the fall. I felt like I was going to vomit from disgust, but I recorded their conversation on my smartphone. I submitted that recording to the police. With the DNA test results and the recording, the police took action. When Eric was caught, he tried to stick to the deal with Timothy and take the blame alone. However, faced with the audio data I provided, he confessed everything. Eric's mention of Timothy led the police to decide they needed to talk to him as well, so they came to get him. Any excuse you make now is pointless. Damn it! What's wrong with letting a guy have a little fun? It's not like it means anything. Timothy was quietly taken away by the police. I didn't miss the words he muttered at that moment. I had already planned to get a divorce, but my resolve grew stronger. Since Diana was only 17 and underage, both Timothy and the nurse were charged with child welfare law violation and prostitution law violation. Even though it was their first offense, the severity of their actions led to a 7-year prison sentence. Of course, Timothy and I got divorced. We split the marital savings, but I didn't give him any of Diana's money because she still needed it for her hospital stays. Losing his social standing after a prison sentence would make things tough for him upon release. I briefly considered giving him a bit more money to help, but remembering his words as he was taken away changed my mind. Now, I want him to struggle as much as possible. I moved back to my parents' house, and Diana was transferred to a hospital nearby. My parents agreed to help support Diana, so I decided to go back to work. Though it would be challenging due to the gap in my employment, I was determined to work hard to support Diana. Aiden! What are you doing? What on earth happened here? I found my grandson, looking cold, wrapped in a blanket and cowering in the corner of the garage, and I rushed over to him in a panic. Grandma. It's okay. It happens all the time. Don't worry about it. That's right. It's his punishment for always causing trouble. What? I reacted with a frown to the statement made by my daughter-in-law, who had quietly stood behind me. After that, being trapped in the garage, I encouraged my grandson and decided to take action. Let's escape, Aiden. Huh? I will protect you no matter what. I'll rescue you from here, so just wait. I said this and took my mobile phone out of my pocket and called someone. My name is Mary. I've reached the age of 70 and run a candy store with my sister, Dorothy. After my husband passed away and I was left alone, I seemed to be standing on the brink of despair for a while. My sister, who couldn't bear to see me like that, invited me to join her. This shop belongs to my sister and her late husband, and I'm here to help, so to speak. My sister's husband died quite some time ago as well. This shop, a memento of her husband, is something she's determined to protect. And I want to support her in that. So, I decided to work as a helper. Mary, what are we going to do for the New Year celebration? My sister has always doted on me. She acted as a parent in place of our busy parents. To me, my sister was indeed like a mother. I guess we'll probably go to Oliver's place again this year, huh? I've promised to show up, and I've told Aiden as well. Oliver is my son. He has a child with his wife, Emma, and that's my grandson, Aiden. By the way, how old is Aiden now? I think he's 20 years old. Is he still staying at home all the time? At my sister's words, I let my expression darken. My grandson Aiden apparently started shutting himself at home after attending college for a while. It seems he was bullied, and he even dropped out of college this year. Currently, he's unemployed and doesn't step out of the house at all. It seems so. Really? Aiden used to be such a social and cheerful child. My sister is right. Up until high school, my grandson was lively and had a life that had nothing to do with shutting himself at home. But then, one day, he suddenly became reclusive, and I was unable to hide my surprise when I heard about it. Then, you should take this to him. As I recalled the situation and looked gloomy, my sister handed me some sweets. Dorothy, here! When you're feeling down, having some sweets and taking it easy is the best. The candy Aiden used to love is back in stock. If you like, take it to him. My sister, who smiles so brightly, is reliable and shed a bright light on my darkened heart. Time passed, and the season turned to the new year. I was visiting my son's house. It must have been cold, right? Come on in, please. My son's wife took my coat and guided me into the living room. I thought she was really considerate and a good person, but then something happened that nullified that impression. Thanks, Emma. By the way, where's Aiden? I couldn't find my grandson anywhere. Even though he usually stays holed up at home, he shows his face and smiles at me whenever I visit. But on this day, he's nowhere to be found. I had heard my son would be back from work in the evening, but I haven't been told anything about my grandson. Is he in his room? That's what I thought when I was about to head there. Aiden's out shopping right now, Emma shouted, as if to stop me in my tracks. I jumped in surprise, but even more shocking were her words. Shopping? Aiden is able to leave the house now? My grandson, who hadn't left the house for the past year, was taking an unexpected big step. I was so moved that I inadvertently let out a loud cry. Yes. It seems he finally found the courage. I felt a slight unease in Emma's forced smile. But at that moment, I didn't dig into it. Because my son's wife was truly devoted and dependable. I had never once looked at her with a suspicious gaze. Since my son was an emergency doctor, he rarely came home. So, the household matters were almost entirely left to his wife, Emma. That's why she quit her job. She wanted to dedicate herself to her family and raise her son properly. She had overcome the challenges of raising him alone with those thoughts in mind. I had no reason to suspect that Emma would do anything to her grandson. But now, I live with a lifetime of regret. If only I had noticed my daughter-in-law's hidden side at that time, my grandson might not have suffered like this. I'm making your favorite steak for dinner tonight, Mary. Oh my! You didn't have to go to all that trouble. Not at all. You've always been so good to us. Please let me do this much. Thank you. Here, this is for Aiden. The candy that Aiden used to love is back in stock. Saying that, I handed over a box of assorted candies, and she smiled at me with pleasure. I was helping Emma prepare dinner, but when I looked at the clock, it was already past 7 p.m. Speaking of which, Aiden hasn't come back yet. Isn't it getting too late for shopping? He just called me. He'll be staying at a friend's house today. A friend? He's been staying inside the house all the time, but it seems he's made an internet friend recently. He'll be staying at their house today. Something's off. If he had the courage to do that, why would he be cooped up at home? I continued to prepare dinner with those doubts in my mind. I felt something was off about my DIL's explanation. I wanted to see the truth with my own eyes. Thinking so, I slipped out of the living room while my DIL was busy preparing dinner. I quietly visited my grandson's room, making sure not to make any noise, only to find that no one was there. Rather, the room was completely empty. What is this? Where's Aiden? Aiden, where are you? Something was wrong. I thought so and started walking around my son's house. It was built in an old-fashioned way, with a long corridor running through it. The view of the garden from that corridor was always breathtaking, but today something felt off about it. That garage, has it been cleaned up? This house originally belonged to my husband, and it's his family home. Now my son and his family live there. So, I knew that garage had been there for a long time, but for some reason, the garage that was dirty last year had been cleaned. It had changed as if someone had put a hand to it, and I couldn't help but wonder why. I was about to approach the garage, changing into the sandals left in the garden, when it happened. Found you! Mary, what are you doing? My son's wife's shouting voice rang out, as if to stop me from entering the garage. Surprised by her loud voice, I involuntarily jumped back. You suddenly disappeared, and I've been looking all over for you. Emma. I'm sorry. I thought I'd take a look at the garden, as it's been a while. Oh, come on. Please let me know next time. This house is so big, it's hard to notice if anything happens. Her laugh was somehow frightening, and I took a step back, forcing a smile. Aiden came home when he heard you were here, Grandma. He's in the kitchen now, shall we go back? Came home? That one sentence filled me with unease again. For my grandson, who had been staying home, a chance to play with friends should have been extremely valuable. I was happy that he was pleased to see me, but would he really come home just because of that? My suspicions grew towards my son's wife as we headed back to the living room together. But on the way, I didn't overlook it. The fact that my grandson's shoes were next to the garage. And after this, I was to find out that my grandson had been leading a truly desperate life. Come on, the steak is ready, let's eat. My son's wife handed me a plate and encouraged me to eat. But I couldn't find my grandson anywhere. No matter how much I looked around, I couldn't even sense his presence. Puzzled, I decided to ask. Hey, where's Aiden? You said he came home, right? I had been concerned about my grandson ever since I arrived, and my son's wife seemed to sigh in frustration at my questions. Aiden's in the kitchen. The kitchen? He takes his meals in the kitchen. What? I was genuinely shocked by what she said. I recalled my grandson's room earlier and the shoes by the garage. I hastily stood up and headed to the kitchen where my grandson was. Aiden? Grandma. There he was, standing and eating a hamburger. I noticed the hamburger he was eating, but what surprised me even more was my grandson's drastically changed appearance. He used to love sports, and he had a good physique. But my grandson standing there had lost all his flesh, so emaciated that his collarbone and other bones were sharply protruding. His gaunt and unhealthy appearance made me let out a cry that was almost a scream. Aiden, what happened to you? Your body. Grandma, please, help. What are you doing, Aiden? The moment my grandson tried to say something, my son's wife appeared, cutting him off. My grandson, whose face looked like he might burst into tears at any moment, now stared at his mother in fear. Mary, we have this delicious meat. Let's eat it quickly, shall we? Just ignore Aiden. Saying that, my son's wife tried to coax me away from the kitchen. I refused and stood in front of her, as if shielding my grandson. Emma, what is going on here? What do you mean? My son's wife stared at me with a feigned innocent look, trying to play dumb. Her insincere behavior irritated me and fueled my anger. Don't play dumb, please. Why is Aiden eating in the kitchen all by himself? And just a hamburger at that. Oh, this is his punishment. I involuntarily shuddered at her, as she said it with a smirk, as if it were a trivial matter. She continued speaking, laughing with a troubled look and lowering her eyebrows, while looking at my grandson, who was hiding behind me. Today, I asked him to clean the bathroom, but he didn't do it properly. It's part of his discipline. Is there a problem with that? I felt a terror at my son's wife's stance on discipline. Just because he failed to clean once, he has to endure this? It's too strange. She must be insane. That's exactly what I felt. I wonder if my son knows how terrifying her ideas are. The moment I opened my mouth to question her, my grandson interrupted me. I'm sorry. I'm okay, really. Grandma, can you please go eat with Mom and enjoy your meal? Please? He pleaded in a soft voice, and my grandson grabbed the back of my clothes. I could feel his hand trembling through my back, and I chose to swallow the words I was about to say. Grandma, it's normal for me to eat here, so please don't worry about it, really? Normal? What do you mean by normal? Come on, Aiden says so. Let's go over there, shall we? Mary. Saying so, my son's wife forcibly took me to the living room. If I stir things up any further, my grandson might be harmed. If that's why he intervened earlier to prevent that. I sensed a crisis for my grandson and pondered desperately for a solution. Come on, let's cheer up and eat. Today we have premium beefsteak, she said, cheerfully chewing on the delicious-looking meat. But I couldn't eat it all, and I excused myself by saying I had a light dinner before coming here. After finishing the meal, I was planning to stay overnight and was guided to the bathroom. Taking the opportunity, I walked around the house again, looking for my grandson. I have to save Aiden from the situation since I came to this house and my grandson's condition. I sensed that my son's wife was doing something terrible to him. But how to save him? I was thinking of taking my grandson and going to my sister's place, but I couldn't find him anywhere. He was not in the room's bathroom. Where had he disappeared to? Could it be that he's been locked in my son's wife's room? Just then, I spotted the garage in the yard. My grandson's shoes were lying there. Could it be? I quickly changed into the yard sandals and rushed to the garage entrance. Ooh! The garage entrance was not locked, and I was able to enter smoothly. There, I found my grandson, trying to fall asleep. Aiden! What are you doing here? What on earth happened? I rushed to my grandson, who was huddled in the corner of the garage, looking cold and frightened, wrapped in a blanket. My grandson looked up at me, trembling, as if frightened by my approach. Grandma. It's okay. It happens all the time. Please, don't worry about it. That's right. It's his punishment for always being a nuisance. What? Emma was suddenly standing at the entrance to the garage, smiling as she looked at my grandson and me. Mom! Mary, you really do love meddling, don't you? Even though Aiden was trying to protect you. Emma, You've been cruel to Aiden after all. Cruel? What are you talking about, LOL? I'm just teaching Aiden the same way I was raised. If you do something wrong, it's natural to be punished, right? Neglect. That word perfectly summed up the family environment, and I was almost at a loss for words. My son's wife was apparently raised in a harsh environment as a child, and what she was doing to my grandson seemed to be a part of the discipline she had received herself. But I couldn't accept that kind of parenting, and I spontaneously voiced my opinion. Punishment? This? What did Aiden do? You don't understand how I feel. I love Aiden and want him to be with me forever. But he abandoned me, trying to leave the house to go to college. It's all because he went to such a place. That's why he changed. My grandson was utterly terrified by his mother's hysterical outburst. I learned later that because she had overcome the challenges of raising a child alone, she seemed to have developed an abnormal attachment to my son. So, you've confined Aiden. You knew, didn't you? That's right, to keep Aiden from leaving me. So, I made him quit college. It was all to satisfy her own desires. I couldn't comprehend her, talking about such terrifying thoughts so casually. The situation was more than just frightening. My grandson had been living in fear of that twisted love, suffering for a whole year. Thinking of his terror, I trembled with rage and couldn't help but glare at her. Since Mary knows the truth now, I can't let you go home, can I? With those words, my son's wife, wearing a sinister smile, began to slowly close the garage door. We're going to be trapped. I realized it too late, and by the time I started to move, it was already too late. After a loud metallic clang, I heard the sound of a lock. I'll think about what to do with Mary overnight. For today, you two, Aiden and you, will just have to sleep in the garage and reflect on things. My son's wife seemed relieved that she had locked me and my grandson in, and I could hear her walking away from the scene. In the silent garage, it was my grandson who spoke first. Why? Huh? Why did you come looking for me? If you had just left me alone. I couldn't bear to watch my grandson crying out like that, trembling with guilt and fear. Thinking from his perspective, this life had been so hard and painful for him. Overwhelmed by unbearable emotions, I gently embraced him. Don't talk nonsense, dear. Where is there an old woman who would abandon her precious grandson? Precious. Yes, dear. It's no exaggeration to say that my life was saved because you were born. Just before my grandson was born, I was struck with the grave illness of cancer. My body had dramatically withered away, and the disease had spread to various places. It was severe. Honestly, I thought it might be the end of my life. I was in such a state that I had prepared myself for it. During that time, Emma was in a dangerous situation during childbirth for both mother and child. It was such a difficult delivery that they were issuing warnings. But my grandson was born. At the time of his birth, I expressed profound gratitude to my son's wife, and although I had been ready for the end of my life, my grandson gave me the courage and hope to live. So, you see, I decided that I must protect you. It's because of your resilience, which saved my life, that I have been able to live this long. My grandson listened quietly to my gentle words. And then, perhaps overwhelmed by a wave of both pain and joy, he began to cry quietly, embracing me in return. I really want to run away. I want to leave here and go somewhere Mom isn't. I'm scared of Mom. If I voice any opinion, she starts screaming like she's a different person. If I didn't listen to her, I'd be locked in this garage since I was little. Even if I escaped, she would file a missing person report, and I'd be caught right away. There's no escape. I had no idea that my son's wife's behavior was tormenting my grandson like this. From what he told me, all his friends were taken away by my son's wife, and there was no one to help him. It seemed he had given up hope of escaping from my son's wife. Now I'm stuck with this weak body. I'm really pathetic, aren't I? I found it painful to see my grandson's forced smile. I could feel my body trembling with anger. Let's run away, Aiden. Huh? I will protect you no matter what. I will rescue you from here, so just wait. I said this and pulled out my mobile phone from my pocket, calling someone. Hello? Mary, what's going on? The person on the other end was my sister, and I explained the whole situation to her. Rather than getting angry, my sister thought of a way to help us first. First of all, make sure to keep each other warm so you don't get cold. Oliver's workplace is that place, right? With those words, my sister asked me for the address of my son's workplace. I was certain, but I wondered what she was planning to do, and was about to ask when she cut me off, anticipating my question. We need to teach her a lesson. I'll make her understand that her twisted love is wrong. Just wait, both of you. I'll come and rescue you soon. My sister told me this unilaterally, then hung up the phone, and we spent some time just like that. It was January, in the dead of winter. Since we were in the mountains, the temperature had dropped even further. The cold was so severe that even huddled together, my grandson and I couldn't bear it. Our words dwindled, and I felt like I might lose consciousness. Just as I was about to close my eyes with those thoughts, something happened. It sounded like a fire or some sort of accident nearby. There was a loud noise of ambulances, fire trucks, and police cars. The sound brought me back to my senses, but something about it seemed off. It was very close, and it sounded as if they had stopped right in front of our house, perhaps? Just as I thought that, I heard the scream of my son's wife. Hey, you guys! What's going on? Over here! Quickly, break the garage lock. Incredibly, I even began to hear my son's voice from outside. Help had arrived. With that thought, I stood up and began pounding on the garage with all my strength. I'm here, someone! Someone, please help! Save Aiden, save my grandson! Following my cry, my grandson also began to raise his voice, calling for help. We're opening it now. Please stand back. Because the paramedic shouted that, my grandson and I moved away from the entrance. The sound of the lock being broken with machinery echoed, and the moment it was destroyed, the entrance burst open with force. Are both of you okay? Dad. My son, his face a mix of panic and anxiety, appeared and hugged his son as if he were jumping on him. Seeing his father's face, my grandson seemed relieved and embraced his father, crying. Hey, what are you doing? You think this is allowed? Doing something like this without permission? Emma, unable to comprehend the situation, screamed and ranted, claiming their actions were unreasonable. But not a single adult seemed intimidated by her. Everyone glared at her, and then my sister appeared, confronting my son's wife. Don't talk nonsense! Do you even realize what you've done? My sister yelled at my son's wife in a voice louder than I'd ever heard before. We were all taken aback by her voice. But the one who was even more startled was my son's wife. You were about to do something irreversible. Don't you understand how dangerous that was? My sister yelled at my son's wife, her anger like that of a real mother. But my son's wife raised her voice to confront her. In the first place, if Mary hadn't meddled, none of this would have happened. It's not my fault. It's all Mary's fault. I'm not in the wrong. Those words of my son's wife, screaming that she was not at fault, made me furious, and I lost my temper. If I hadn't noticed this today, you would have continued to believe Aiden was yours and would have kept taking away his freedom. But that's because Aiden doesn't understand my feelings. Don't force your selfish thoughts on a child. I rebuked my son's wife, who was still trying to resist, scolding her so sharply that I left no room for rebuttal. You unilaterally demand love in return and don't even try to listen to the child's opinions. You have no right to call yourself a parent. What did you say? Interrupting Emma's attempt to argue, a police officer stepped in front of her. Emma, you are being detained on suspicion of kidnapping. What? Hey, wait a minute. Hold on. If you resist, the charges will become more serious. At the police officer's words, a breathless Emma quieted down and was then taken away. Afterward, my grandson and I went to the hospital for an examination. He had been locked in a freezing garage. There were no visible abnormalities. He underwent a thorough examination, but nothing unusual was found. However, he was hospitalized to monitor his condition for the day. Dorothy, thank you for coming to help. You should thank Oliver. Thanks to him quickly arranging everything, we were able to rescue him. I'm really sorry. It's my fault for not looking after the house properly. Oliver, that's not true. You were working hard to protect our home. But maybe this happened because I left everything to Emma, using work as an excuse. I'm also to blame. I spoke gently to my son, who felt responsible. Then, from now on, you must protect Aiden. Surely, Emma will come to take Aiden back. Yeah, I think so too. We have to make sure that he never falls into her hands again. That's true. But what should we do? I have an idea. When I proposed this to my son and sister, they both agreed. Time passed, and the day came when Emma was released. As we were prepared for her to contact us, sure enough, Oliver's mobile phone rang. Wait, what's going on here? The first thing out of her mouth was neither an apology nor a complaint, but a voice almost like a shout. Both my sister and I, who were listening to the call, sighed at her expected reaction. What's the matter? The house! It's gone, isn't it? Yeah, it's gone. We don't need a house to live with you anymore. What? What do you mean? Explain yourself. Just being released and faced with an incomprehensible situation, she was speaking with a voice filled with anger and desperation. In fact, after that, we all, including my grandson, had discussed it and sold the house, leaving it a vacant lot. Since I had originally been the owner of the house, selling it was easy. My son and grandson were now living on entirely different land, and after this phone call, the mobile phone was to be disconnected, and arrangements were made to talk to Emma through a lawyer. There's no way we can go on with you, and Aiden has finally settled down. Don't try to interfere with our family anymore. What are you talking about? Aiden is my precious son. Stop it. The grandson, who had been listening to the call, quietly spoke up at her, shouting, Aiden! Where are you? Mom will come and get you. Just wait, I'll come and take you back right away. You're creepy. In response to Emma's words, the grandson spoke out in an angry tone. Emma, surprised at his words, showed a look of confusion. Aiden? What on earth are you saying? I've put up with it for so long. I'm finally living freely with Dad and the others, so don't get in our way. I never want to see your face again. The grandson who had said that was excited, catching his breath with his shoulders. I placed my hand on his shoulder and gently soothed him by patting it several times. We are getting a divorce. Don't ever show yourself in front of us again. My son, who had said this, hung up the phone unilaterally and immediately set his phone to reject calls from Emma's number. We also made sure that no contact could reach the grandson's mobile phone, leaving the rest to the lawyer. After that, the divorce from Emma was successfully finalized. Thanks to a restraining order, the grandson is enjoying peaceful days. Emma is said to be attending therapy, unable to let go of her love for her son. She's not working and lives on benefits from the government, or so I heard through the grapevine. Since then, my grandson has stopped shutting himself in the house and is now studying hard with the ambition to attend medical school. I want to become someone who can help others too. Inspired by the father and rescue team that saved him, he's been saying this and striving every day. My sister and I still run the candy store, playing with little children every day. For our grandchildren who have regained a peaceful life, and for the children yet to be born who we hope to welcome into our lives. We cannot give up on living just yet. Aren't you cold? Rebecca, my son's wife, asked with a gentle voice. Now that you mention it, I do feel a bit chilly. Maybe it's the fever. I had been suffering from a high fever of 102 degrees Fahrenheit since the morning. Then you might want to put on something warmer. I have some old winter clothes I don't need anymore in the closet. Wear those, sweat a lot, and get your fever down, okay? Saying that, Rebecca went to get an old jacket of hers and came back to put it on me. Thank you. Rebecca. No need. Linda, you're a Timothy's important mother, you and also an important mother to me. And if you have something to cool my head, please. You must be cold? So, I'll turn on the heating for you. With those words, Rebecca closed the door of the room and went somewhere. Did Rebecca say something strange at the end, or was it my misunderstanding? Feeling a bit odd, it took some time for me to think clearly through my dazed consciousness. Turn on the heating, surely not. Before I knew it, the room had become as hot as if I were in a sauna. I was desperately looking for the air conditioner remote. Why can't I find the remote anywhere? Trying to leave the room in a hurry, the door wouldn't open. No matter how many times I threw my weakened body against the door, it wouldn't budge. Rebecca, open this door. This prank has gone too far. This is way over the line. Do you understand what I'm saying? Hey, are you listening? Eventually, my consciousness began to fade, and I collapsed to the floor. As my consciousness faded, my hand unconsciously grabbed my mobile phone. Anyone, please, help! My name is Linda, 43 years old. I married earlier than most of my friends and had my eldest son, Timothy, at the age of 20. However, my husband died in an unexpected accident. Raising a child as a single mother was not easy, and I was willing to take any job I could, eventually finding employment at a certain company. Eventually, I realized that the work environment was extremely harsh, but I continued to work for over 20 years with the thought, until Timothy can stand on his own. Now, Timothy is living away from home in a condominium, enjoying his newlywed life with a woman he met at a party, named Rebecca. Feeling relieved by my son's independence and perhaps because the long-standing tension had finally snapped, I ended up breaking down physically and had no choice but to quit the company I had served for over 20 years. You've always worked hard for my sake, Mom. Maybe it's time you started living for yourself? Timothy said this, but having worked for the sake of my family for so many years, the idea of living for myself was somewhat foreign to me. After much thought, the answer I came to was, maybe I should try working a bit more? However, I was done with the harsh working conditions of the past, so I decided to opt for a part-time job that would allow me to work at my own pace and during hours I preferred. I thought it would be fine as long as I found a new goal while working part-time, without any rush. Then, until your life stabilizes, you can stay at my condo for a while. There's a spare bedroom that's vacant, intended for friends who come to stay over. Your condo, wouldn't I be a bother? A bother? No way. I am what I am today because of you, Mom. If I can repay you, I wouldn't consider it a bother at all. I felt resistant to moving into my newlywed son and his wife's condominium. Would Rebecca mind? I think it'll be fine. She's a good person, so I'm sure she'll get along with you, Mom. Then I'll take you up on that offer. I'll find a stable job and move out as soon as I can. No rush, Mom. Go at your own pace. It worries me more as your son if you rush and get sick again. Thus began my life living with my son and his wife. Rebecca, my son's wife, greeted me with a warm smile. I've cleaned up your room, washed the bed sheets, too. You can put your luggage in the bedroom and relax, maybe watch some TV for now. Thank you. But being treated so kindly makes me feel even more guilty about imposing. I'm still far from a perfect wife and have so much to learn. If it's okay with you, Linda, please teach me. Sure. Looking forward to it, Rebecca. Watching our exchange, Timothy smiled. See? Just like I said, right? I felt a surge of excitement, sensing that Rebecca and I would get along just fine. However, about a month later, as I tried to leave my bedroom, the door wouldn't open properly, as if something was blocking it. Wondering if it was a problem with the door fitting or perhaps the wood had swollen from humidity, I pushed the door open with force, only to find a mountain of laundry piled up. What on earth is this? I was at a loss for words at the sight of the laundry carelessly piled up in the hallway. Then, Rebecca's voice came from the direction of the living room. Linda, I've let the laundry pile up, so could you please do it? Rebecca said this while lounging on the sofa, munching on snack foods and watching TV. If you wanted it done, you could have just asked. Why did you have to dump it in the hallway? I thought it would be more noticeable and easier for you to see that way. I clearly felt this was a form of harassment. On another day, as Rebecca was engrossed in a video game in the living room, I kindly offered. I can teach you some of Timothy's favorite recipes. Would you like to help me cook tonight? Rebecca clicked her tongue annoyingly and said, Don't bother me now. I'm at a good part. Ah, you made me mess up. Your mere presence is annoying. Ever since I moved into the condominium, I had never once seen Rebecca cook anything resembling a meal. When I asked why she didn't cook, Rebecca said with a straight face, Because it's a hassle. When asked how they managed their meals until now, she said, I asked Timothy to pick up frozen food or fast food from the grocery store on his way home from work, and also snacks and drinks. I wondered if this couple always lived on such a diet. Opening the refrigerator, I found it devoid of any real food ingredients. I'm not interested in cooking. If you want to do it, then go ahead. But every time I tried to involve Rebecca in cooking. Stop nagging. I'm letting you stay here for free, so don't complain. I thought you were going to do the housekeeping, that's why I let you stay. If you're going to keep bothering me and Timothy, why don't you just leave? It seemed she felt I was intruding on her newlywed life with Timothy. Having been told that, I couldn't argue, as it was an undeniable fact. You're right. I'm sorry, Rebecca. I never intended to be a burden or get in your way. Please understand that. Although Rebecca spoke to me arrogantly when we were alone, as soon as Timothy returned home from work. Listen, Linda is going to teach me how to cook Timothy's favorite dishes. I'll try making them sometime, so look forward to it. She smiled at me with a forced cheerfulness, and I smiled back silently. You two really get along well. It looks like the typical MIL and DIL conflict doesn't apply here. Timothy laughed heartily, oblivious to the reality. And look at the laundry and how much cleaner the room is. I did all that. Linda made it easy to understand. Wow, you are like a model housewife. In reality, I had done everything myself, while Rebecca had merely lounged on the sofa. Despite my position as a dependent, I couldn't bring myself to reveal Rebecca's true nature to Timothy. One day, this life continued for a while. From the moment I woke up that morning, I felt a pain in my head. Normally, my body would start moving at a certain time, but on this day, it seemed like it was refusing to move. There was this peculiar sensation as if my body was softly floating in the air, and just by taking a single step out of bed, I felt incredibly exhausted. It didn't take long for me to realize this was due to a fever. When I checked with a thermometer, it read 102 degrees Fahrenheit. I wonder if I've caught a cold. Reflecting on the previous day, I remembered that Rebecca had asked me to go shopping at the supermarket near the station. On my way back, it suddenly started raining, and I didn't have an umbrella. I didn't think Rebecca would bring one to me if I asked, so I waited for the rain to stop. Then, I received a message from Rebecca. Come back now. Taking a taxi wasn't an option due to financial constraints, and since the condo wasn't too far from the station, I foolishly thought I could just run back. Upon arriving and asking Rebecca what was the matter, I ordered takeout, and the delivery person should be arriving soon. I really prefer not to deal with people, so Linda, could you pay for it instead? I had been made to run in the rain just for that. It was clear to me what had caused my cold. Somehow managing to get up and make my way to the living room with heavy steps, Rebecca was sprawled in her usual spot on the sofa. Linda, the laundry has piled up, so could you take care of it? I leaned against the wall. Rebecca, I'm sorry, but could you take care of your own things today? Linda, what's wrong with you? Your face is all red. It seems I've caught a cold. I'll be resting in my room for today. That's going to be a problem. An auntie just lying around sick is nothing but a nuisance to us. Even if you say that, there's nothing I can do if my body won't cooperate. Your body won't cooperate. But you walked all the way here, didn't you? That means you can move if you try a little harder. Also, I haven't had breakfast yet, so please take care of that. And like I said before, don't forget the laundry. If you could, please clean the room too. Rebecca's commands relentlessly pierced my aching head. And if Linda really can't stand anymore, you can rest in your room, but only after you've prepared my lunch, okay? Without the energy to argue and my mind barely functioning, I silently carried out Rebecca's orders. I prepared breakfast for her, made lunch in advance, started the laundry, and cleaned the floors. Could you move, please? Linda, you're in the way, and I can't see the TV at all. What do you think I am? I'm not a robot. The emotions I usually kept deep inside burst out, as if propelled by the high fever. I can see you're not a robot. After all, a cleaning robot wouldn't be in the way, wouldn't complain, and would be much more useful than you. I was about to retort, but before I could, all strength left my body, and I collapsed to the floor. Yet, Rebecca remained motionless, not moving an inch from the sofa, continuing to watch TV. When the laundry machine signaled its cycle had ended, I somehow managed to hang the laundry on the balcony, feeling like I could collapse at any moment. Rebecca, I've prepared your lunch, so I'm going to rest until the evening. Okay. Make sure you go quickly once you're done. I don't want to catch a cold from you. I had no energy left to respond to her words. As I was drifting off to sleep after crawling into bed, Linda, are you okay? Rebecca entered the bedroom. I had already made lunch for her. What more could she possibly want? Aren't you cold? For once, she seemed to be showing concern for me. Now that you mention it, I do feel a bit chilly. Maybe it's because of the fever. In my weakened state, I mistook her malicious intent for genuine kindness. Then you might want to dress more warmly. Oh, right. I have some old winter clothes I don't need anymore in the closet. Wear those, sweat a lot, and lower your fever, okay? Saying that, Rebecca brought an old jacket of hers and put it on me. Thank you. You're surprisingly thoughtful. Not at all. Timothy's important mother is also important to me. And if you have something to cool my head, please. Whether Rebecca responded to my last request or not. You must be cold, Linda. So, I'll turn on the heating for you. With those words, Rebecca closed the bedroom door and left. Did Rebecca say something strange at the end, or was it just a slip of the tongue? Despite my unease, it took a while for my foggy consciousness to reach a logical conclusion. Turning on the heating, surely not. Before I knew it, sweat was pouring out of every pore. But the real problem was that the room had become as hot as if I were in a sauna. This prank has gone way too far. If I had realized any later, I might have been in real danger. While venting my anger, I desperately searched for something. Why can't I find the remote anywhere? It seemed that Rebecca had not only set the air conditioner to heating mode, but had also taken the remote out of the room. I tried to leave the room, but for some reason, the door wouldn't open. What's going on? What do you find enjoyable about doing this? No matter how many times I threw my weakened body against the door, it wouldn't budge. Rebecca! Open this door! This is too much! Eventually, my consciousness began to fade, and I collapsed to the floor. As my consciousness faded, my hand unconsciously grabbed my mobile phone. Anyone, please, help! I wasn't aware of where my fingers had slid, but soon I heard a ringtone from the other side, followed by a man's voice. Linda? What's going on? It's not like you to call me. Hello? Linda? Are you there? Whose voice is that? It's me, Andrew. We were in the same class in high school. Andrew? Andrew, help me. It sounds like you're in serious trouble. Where are you? Tell me your location. Somehow, amidst my barely functioning brain, I managed to convey my current address and apartment number. What's happened? Linda! Linda! Andrew's yelling voice gradually faded away. The next time I regained consciousness. What the hell is this? It's in the way. The sound of a large object being kicked and knocked over echoed on the flooring, and then Andrew burst through the door. Andrew! Linda! It's like a sauna in here. How did this happen? You're severely dehydrated, but don't worry, I'll take care of you now. Then he called out towards the entrance. Hey, could I get some help here, please? The manager rushed into the room, and upon seeing my weakened state and the condition of the bedroom. How could this happen? He stood there in shock, as if seeing something unbelievable. Manager, don't just stand there in a daze, bring some water. Yes. Just then, an oblivious Rebecca returned home and showed her face. Who are you? And why is the manager here too? I don't have time to explain to you. What do you think you're doing, barging into someone's apartment like this? I'm calling the police. Go ahead and call if you want. Before that, I'm taking her to the hospital. I'm her high school classmate. I rushed over here after she called me, and this is what I found. What did you do to her? I didn't do anything strange. I just thought she said she was feeling cold. Rebecca kept repeating her excuses, her face pale, but Andrew, rejecting all her words, said, Move, you're in the way. Several days after the incident, having fully recovered, I decided to meet Andrew in the hospital's cafe to express my gratitude for his help. I don't remember much due to my delirious state at the time, but according to the doctors and nurses who treated me, Andrew was wearing an expensive suit. Although I don't know what kind of job he has, considering his earnest and justice-filled personality and appearance, there's no doubt he's competent in his work. "Hey, Linda. Glad to see you're looking much better." Today, he was dressed in casual clothes, likely because it was his day off, but still, there was a sense of luxury about him. "Thank you for the other day. I was saved because you rushed over. If you hadn't come at that time, I can't imagine what might have happened to me." Andrew, perhaps not wanting to worry me, flashed a bright, white smile. "But I was honestly surprised to get a call from you that day. The last time we met was at our high school graduation, right?" "Was it? It's been that long since we last met." "Yeah. You never showed up at any reunions." "That's right. I've been busy with work." "Someone mentioned at the reunion that you've been a single mother all this time. It must have been tough with work. But now I'm living with my son and his wife in their condominium. I'm repaying a debt of gratitude." "I see. But how did you end up in that situation in the condominium? It wasn't just an accident, was it?" I hesitated about how much to divulge to an old classmate I hadn't seen in years. Yet, owing him a debt of gratitude, I decided it was best to tell him everything, holding nothing back. After listening to everything about my interactions with Rebecca, Andrew nodded slowly. "Then, let me tell you everything I saw that day." With that, he began to recount in detail how he ended up at the scene that day and what he witnessed. He had been driving back to work after a meeting when he was startled by my call, prompting him to change his destination immediately. However, upon arriving at the condominium, the door was equipped with an auto-lock system, preventing easy access by outsiders. At that point, Andrew declared it an emergency situation and explained the circumstances to the manager to have the door opened. "When I entered the room, I was shocked. The first thing that caught my eye was a storage shelf placed unnaturally in front of one of the room's doors. And from the gap under the door, I could feel an intense heat. That's when I knew something was wrong." A storage shelf? So Rebecca went that far. He handed me a business card. Upon reading the business card, I looked at him with a mix of surprise and admiration. It had his name and the title of law firm partner printed on it. "You're a lawyer?" Andrew smiled a bit sheepishly and said, "I've been a lawyer for over a decade, but getting such a surprised reaction from you makes me feel like I'm back to square one, getting all nervous." After revealing his profession, he inquired if Rebecca had made any other unpleasant demands of me. I shared that from the beginning of my stay as a dependent, Rebecca had treated me almost like a servant, a situation I had resigned myself to as unavoidable. Then he looked at me seriously. "I heard from your son, Timothy. The reason Linda started living with them in the condominium was that Timothy wanted to repay his mother for everything she had done. That might be true for him, but I had quit my job and was living part-time without any income, so staying there was really the only option for me." "Still, you quit your job because the harsh working conditions were too much for your health, right? You worked hard, even to the detriment of your health, for Timothy's sake." "He understands that." Timothy said that? When Linda was hospitalized for dehydration without consciousness, Timothy shared a lot with me. He really wanted to repay his mother more adequately but felt guilty that he hadn't done enough. "He has nothing to feel guilty about." "You have every right to refuse Rebecca's unreasonable demands. After all, the reason for living in that condominium was Timothy's desire to repay his mother, Linda. Yet, Rebecca, his wife, not only failed to honor that intent but repeatedly treated you terribly. We have a strong case if it comes to court. As a lawyer, I want to protect you." Andrew's words ignited a dormant fighting spirit within me. "Thank you. I'll tell you everything I know." Thus, the heating incident was brought to court. As the defendant, Rebecca appeared in court with a sour expression. "It wasn't me who turned on the heating, it was Linda herself. Probably she doesn't remember because she was delirious from the fever. It was undoubtedly you, Rebecca, who turned on the heating. The air conditioner in the guest room was practically new, having never been used before. Yet, curiously, your fingerprints were all over the remote. That's because I put the batteries in it after it was decided Linda would use that bedroom." "That's strange. No fingerprints were found on the batteries. You used that remote to set the temperature to an unnaturally high level and then placed a storage shelf in front of the door to prevent it from being opened from the inside." "Prevented it from being opened? Where's the evidence for that?" "It's not just me. The manager was there as a witness, too." When Andrew said that, Rebecca glared at the property manager in the audience and clicked her tongue. "Just a few minutes after the heating was activated, you were recorded leaving the condominium by the security cameras. You knowingly left knowing the plaintiff could be in danger." Rebecca's abnormal actions were revealed one by one, causing an uproar in the courtroom. Despite Rebecca's repeated attempts to counter-argue, her responses were off the mark, eventually leading even her own lawyer to despair. "Just as promised, we won the trial, Linda." "Thank you, Andrew. Not only did you save my life, but you also fought for me in court. I can't thank you enough for everything." The court ordered the defendant to pay a substantial amount in damages for the treatment costs and the mental anguish caused to the plaintiff. "But why? Why did you go to such lengths for me?" Andrew smiled shyly, like a boy, and confessed. I've had a crush on you since high school." "What? I had no idea. I thought you were just into your books and not interested in romance." I laughed out loud, but Andrew, with a serious gaze. "Those feelings haven't changed. I was actually happy when you called me for help that day. It meant you were relying on me. That was just a coincidence. I was delirious and my finger just moved on its own. It's not something out of a romantic movie." "Even so, I believe it was fate. God meant for us to reunite. No matter what anyone says, that's what it is." "But you must have been disappointed to reunite with such an old lady like me." "No, not at all. In fact, you seem even more radiant now." "Do you have a family, Andrew?" "Still single. Among our classmates, I'm probably the only one unmarried, always the butt of jokes." "A wonderful man like you will find a partner in no time. Would it be so wrong if that partner were you, Linda?" "I'm just an over 40-year-old lady with a grown son. I quit my job because I couldn't endure the harsh labor. I've never even thought about remarriage. It's too unrealistic." "Please don't force yourself to find demeaning words about yourself. I promised to protect you as a lawyer, and I did. Now, as a man, I want to protect you. What do you think?" At that moment, something warm surged within me. Unable to articulate my feelings, tears rolled down my cheeks. "Yes." I managed to say that one word and nodded again and again. Later, Timothy decided to formally divorce Rebecca. "I'm sorry, Mom. I had no idea you were being treated so terribly behind my back." "I'm sorry. It ended up breaking up your marriage." I was filled with regret. "Don't worry about it, Mom. It's actually good that I saw Rebecca's true nature. If we had continued our marriage, her flaws would have been revealed in another way someday. It was fate. Fate. Hearing you say that makes me feel a bit better. Speaking of fate, wasn't it fate with Andrew? Maybe. Was this all fate? I smiled playfully, but Timothy, with a dependable big brother look. It's said that natural pregnancy becomes difficult after 40. Yet, Mom, you're almost 3 months along, right? The fact that you happened to call Andrew, who turned out to be a skilled lawyer, and now your pregnancy. There's no denying its fate. Faced with such a wonderful series of coincidences, I too began to believe this was meant to be. As I caressed my belly, cherishing the new life within, I vowed to protect those I love for as long as I live. I'm sorry, but you can't make a withdrawal. What? It seems there's only about $1 in your bank account. Wait, there's got to be a mistake. How did it come to this? I was trying to withdraw money from my bank account for my son, Mike's tuition fees. Then I received a call from the credit card company. Hello? We're seeing a charge of $30,000 here. What? I exclaimed louder than before. Other customers in the vicinity turned to look, wondering what was going on. Ma'am? Can you give me a moment? I need to check something. I had a suspicion. After hanging up, I called someone else. Did you use my credit card? Yeah, about that. My parents wanted a new car, so I bought it for them in full. My husband Dylan, unapologetically laughing over the phone. All the savings for Mike's education. Do you even realize what that money was for? Come on, don't make such a fuss. It's not like it was for anything important. Hearing those words, something inside me broke. You better be responsible for your own words. What? It's your fault for leaving your credit card around like that. Don't joke. Even if it's for your parents, you can't just recklessly spend like that. You have no right to tell me that. Realizing arguing was futile, I decided on a final course of action. Fine. Hey, wait a sec. I hung up and immediately called the police. Dylan had to face the consequences. There was no way I could forgive him. I'm Emily. 45 years old, working in sales at a cosmetics company. My family consists of my husband Dylan and our 18-year-old son Mike. Our relationship started through work and evolved from there. Emily, do you plan to get married in the future? What? Where has this come from? I was just thinking, since you're so beautiful. If we're talking about looks, Dylan, you're quite handsome yourself. Oh, come on. We were both 26, thinking about marriage. Such conversations became frequent, and before we knew it, we were dating. A year later, we got married. Dylan wanted me to be a housewife after marriage, but I wanted to continue working. Since I'm going to keep working, how about we just merge our bank accounts? That might get confusing. Let's keep them separate. Really? Well, I'll be the breadwinner, paying rent and groceries. You can handle the savings. Okay then. Living together revealed aspects of Dylan I hadn't noticed before. Discussing it with friends, they said it's often the case, which somewhat reassured me. Things were going well after that, so I didn't say anything too strongly to Dylan. Things went on like this until Mike was born a year into our marriage. We really need to cut back on unnecessary expenses now that we have a child. I was on maternity leave and decided to talk to Dylan when he got back from work. I thought that if I talked to him, he would understand. You think I'm wasting money? I should be able to spend as I like sometimes. Of course, but my worry is that you're overspending. Ugh. Dylan sighed, looking annoyed. I was worried if we were okay, being this way so early in our marriage. But the problem didn't solve itself as time went by. And the issues weren't just with Dylan. My parents are coming over to visit soon. What? Why didn't you tell me earlier? Sorry, I totally forgot. This was just the beginning. I was constantly being put in difficult situations by Dylan and my in-laws. And then, the following Saturday, my in-laws arrived. "Hello, Emily. Long time no see. Please come in. Don't mind if I do." At first glance, the parents-in-law seemed quite caring, and to others, there seemed to be no issues. However, perhaps more like a parent and child, they were lax about managing money. "How about we go shopping today, since it's a special occasion?" "Shopping?" "Yes. There's something I've been wanting for a long time." But since Mike was in a bad mood and wouldn't stop crying no matter what, I ended up staying home. "All right, I'm counting on you to house sit." With that, Dylan left with the parents-in-law. When they returned about 2 hours later, I was surprised to see them. "What's with all those bags in your hands?" "Oh, these? Yeah, I guess I bought too much." Moreover, the bags were printed with logos of famous brands. "We're back. Sorry for making you house sit." "Oh, no, it's okay." Mother-in-law Rebecca was also carrying bags similar to Dylan's. Then, sitting on the sofa, she started spreading out her purchases as if to show them off to me. I didn't own that much myself. Moreover, since getting married, I've been trying to save money, keeping the future in mind. "Thank you for today. I can't believe you bought me so much." "It's nothing to worry about. It's just filial piety. Plus, I got a lot too." Watching this exchange was almost headache-inducing. "Oh, right. This is for Mike." Saying this, Dylan pulled out a piece of baby clothing from a brand. "We had to make you house sit, after all," father-in-law Bert said with a laugh. I had hoped they might have bought something for me too, but there was nothing, and Dylan and his parents seemed satisfied looking at their own things. The day ended with a family dinner and we said goodbyes, but there was another chance to meet the in-laws at a family gathering. "Welcome. Thank you for having us today." Even I, who wasn't much interested in brands, could tell Rebecca was dressed head to toe in brand name clothes. "You always seem so plain." This was said while we were drinking coffee in the living room. From the moment she arrived, Rebecca had been looking at me, and this was why. "I've been meaning to say this, but you need to take care of your appearance more." Then Dylan joined the conversation. "What are you talking about?" "About Emily being plain." "Oh, that. Yeah, I've been meaning to say same." The reason for my plain appearance was because I had more important things to worry about than my own looks. Dylan freely spent money, but I was the one covering the costs from our savings. He didn't realize that our current lifestyle was thanks to that. During my 2-day stay at my in-laws, I had to put up with Rebecca's sarcasm the whole entire time. And upon returning home, Dylan started it with my appearance again. "Like Mom said at home earlier, you should take more care of your appearance. It's embarrassing for me too." Unable to bear it any longer, I vented all my pent-up frustrations. "If you're embarrassed, then think a bit more about how you spend money. I've been saying this for a long time. Are we going to have that talk again? I'm tired of hearing it." "Tired of hearing it? With Mike growing older, are you planning to keep living like this? Life is going on just fine, isn't it?" Dylan laughed and headed to the bedroom. Life went on like this, and before we knew it, Mike had become a junior in high school. Then, one summer afternoon, Dylan came up to me. "I have something I want to discuss." Dylan wanting to discuss something was a bad omen. And as expected, my fears were confirmed. "A discussion? Sort out your money issues yourself." "Haven't said anything yet, have I? Can you pay for some living expenses instead?" Had Dylan not listened to me at all? I was so astounded I didn't want to talk anymore. "By the way, what are you short on?" "What I'm short on? Everything." "Everything? It hasn't even been a week since payday. Just help me out, okay?" Dylan didn't seem to feel any remorse towards me. Reluctantly, I convinced myself it was necessary for our livelihood. "This is the last time, okay?" "Yeah." Even though we were still talking, Dylan was looking at his mobile phone, seemingly bored. And that wasn't all. I'm going out for a bit. Wait. Where are you going? Don't need to tell you. I'll be back by night. And then Dylan left the house. I was left alone in the living room, stunned. Honestly, I've considered divorce more than once or twice. But I didn't because of Mike. While I was thinking about this, Mike came. Huh? Where's Dad? He just went out. Maybe he's gone to buy something again? You think so too? Whenever Dylan went out alone without saying where he was going, he invariably ended up buying unnecessary things. As I sighed, Mike made a suggestion. Why don't you just let it go? What? I've been watching all this time, and it's clearly too much. But you're still here. I can't do something so irresponsible. That's why I'm saying, once I graduate from college, I'll leave this house to work. Then, Mom, you can be free to do what you want. Thank you. For Mike, who had been watching Dylan's reckless behavior, it must have been too much to tolerate. Mike's words were a relief to me. He was my son and we were a team. Dylan returned before dinner, as expected, with luxury items. If there was money to buy such things, it should be used for living expenses. I was too tired to even complain to Dylan. No matter what I said, he wouldn't listen and would do as he pleased. Sometime after I had covered Dylan's expenses. Here. What's this? This is to cover what you paid for me the other day. Saying that, Dylan handed me an envelope. Inside, there was money. Oh, thank you. I hadn't expected him to repay me so soon. When I checked the amount, it was $1,000. It wasn't enough to cover what I paid, but I still felt a little happy. But that brief joy soon turned into a nightmare. All right, I'm taking this back. Hey, what are you doing? Dylan snatched the envelope back from me and put it in his pocket. I did pay you back, right? I'll need it for tomorrow. I don't understand what you're doing. I was confused about what was happening. While I was in panic, Dylan continued. Why are you surprised? Look. Then Dylan handed me the envelope again, only to take it back. He repeated this a few times. So, now I've paid back everything I owe you. I had no energy left to argue back. It was like a child's way of pretending everything was settled. If that's what you think, I won't lend you money again. Why does it come to that? I paid you back, didn't I? Forget it. From that day, I grew to dislike even talking to Dylan. Whenever he asked for something, it was always about money. Even more troublesome were the in-laws. I thought they had been quiet lately, but then suddenly they contacted me. We haven't received this month's allowance. What? Allowance? I haven't heard anything about it. That can't be. Dylan said you would start paying from this month. It's too sudden, I can't. We're in trouble too. We have payments to make. It's your problem, so sort it out. I need it by the day after tomorrow. Wait a minute, Rebecca. She said what she wanted to say and just hung up. I was constantly troubled by this family. Just thinking about it gave me a headache. That night, I asked Dylan what was going on. Rebecca called, but what's this about an allowance? They seemed a bit troubled, so I've been sending them money for a while. But why should I pay? I haven't heard anything about it. Oh, did I forget to mention? And you even told Rebecca that I would be making the deposit. Then just send the allowance. However, I decided not to send the allowance. Nor did I contact the in-laws, ignoring whatever they said. Mike's exams were approaching, and I couldn't afford to focus on such things. Time passed, and Mike got accepted to his first choice of college. Congratulations! You've been working hard for this. The real challenge starts now. Say something to him. Well done. That was the only thing Dylan said without even looking at Mike. Wait a minute. I tried to say something to Dylan, but Mike stopped me. I guess Mike didn't have much expectation from Dylan either. Then trouble came when I went to the bank to pay Mike's tuition. When my number was called and I approached the counter, an unexpected incident occurred. I'm sorry, but you cannot make a withdrawal. What? It seems there is only $1 in your bank account. Wait, there's got to be a mistake. How did it come to this? I was just trying to withdraw money from the bank account for Mike's tuition payment. Then, a call came from the credit card company. Hello? We have noticed some unfamiliar usage on your credit card. Do you have any idea about this? That can't be right. It has to be a mistake. We have a record of the usage. There's a $30,000 charge on your account. What? I exclaimed louder than before. Other customers in the bank turned to look at me. Ma'am? Sorry, could you give me a moment? I need to check something. Understood. I had one suspicion in mind. I hung up and called someone. Where are you now? At home. Why are you so panicky? Did you use my credit card? There was a brief silence. Yeah, that. My parents wanted a new car, so I bought it for them in one go. Dylan laughed over the phone, without any sign of remorse. All the money I had saved for Mike's education. Do you even realize what that money was for? Come on, don't make such a fuss. It couldn't have been for anything important. Hearing those words, something inside me crumbled. You better be responsible for your own words. What? Responsible? It's your fault for leaving your credit card out. Don't joke around. Even if it's for your parents, do you realize how stupid this is? I don't need to be lectured by you. I realized it was futile to argue with Dylan. I decided to take the final step. Fine then. Hey, wait. I hung up the phone immediately and then contacted the police. Dylan would have to face the consequences. No matter what, I couldn't forgive this. When I got back home, I confronted Dylan. You better pay back every penny you used without permission. Sorry, I'm a bit busy right now. What? Dylan was getting ready to leave. I told you I bought a car, right? They're treating me to dinner today. Is this really the time for that? We're not done talking yet. Then we can talk when I get back. I'll be late if I stay now. Ignoring my attempts to stop him, Dylan was about to leave when I told him about notifying the police. I just called the police. He stopped in his tracks. What did you say? Did I hear something about the police? It's not your imagination. What the hell did you do? It's obvious, isn't it? You used my credit card without permission. Taking someone's money like that is theft. Your money is mine too. I just used it. And now you're calling the police. What are you thinking? Anyways, pay back the full amount. And make sure you apologize to Mike too. Apologize? Why? Mike has nothing to do with this. I sighed. Using the money for his own desires was just unbelievable. That money you used was saved for Mike's entrance fees and tuition. But thanks to you, we can't even pay that now. Why didn't you tell me sooner? How could I expect you to do something this foolish? Then he started blaming me. Not realizing someone used your credit card, aren't you the foolish one? My anger was rising. Also, you've always looked down on me, haven't you? That's you. Don't you see me as anything more than a wallet? What? You've become such a troublesome woman. I was about to utter the word divorce when Mike, who had been out, returned. What are you doing? Mike. Another fight? Give it a rest. His words were not directed at me, but at Dylan. What's up? You got a complaint against me too? It's not a complaint, it's a warning. If you keep this up, you'll regret it eventually. Regret? You've become quite bold in talking back to Dad, haven't you? Dylan even started snapping at Mike. I regretted ever marrying such a person. Oh, right, I almost forgot to tell you, I'm going on a trip in a week. How can you be so selfish? I thought about taking you guys along, but changed my mind. Just stay home and behave. Dylan laughed at us mockingly and left to buy things for his trip. Left behind, we looked at each other. I'm sorry, Mike. Your tuition. So that's why you were fighting. Now I couldn't even send him to college. Even though it was Dylan's fault, I wouldn't have been surprised if Mike blamed me. But instead of blaming, Mike was concerned about me. It's not your fault, Mom. Dad's the one to blame. And it's not like I can never go to college. I felt grateful to Mike for saying that, but was also filled with guilt. I decided I had to get revenge on Dylan to the end. I need your help with something. Of course. I'm on your side, Mom. So, we planned our strategy before Dylan returned. And then, in the morning a week later. See ya. I'll be back the day after tomorrow. I didn't even respond. What's with you? At least say something. Oh, and I paid for this trip with your credit card. Dylan left in a good mood. I wasn't even surprised to hear that. Is he gone? Gone. Shall we start then? Yes, let's. We packed up everything except Dylan's belongings. During this week, we had found a place to move to. We decided to move on the day Dylan went on his trip. We're finally done. It took quite some time. Just need to get the movers now. Soon the movers came. We left a note in the room and headed to the new apartment. I also decided to cancel the lease on the current apartment. I was the one who had originally signed the lease. Thus, a new life with Mike began. I wonder what he'll think when he gets back. He'll probably panic. But whatever happens, I don't care. Serves him right. The day Dylan was supposed to return from his trip arrived. Sure enough, there was a barrage of calls from Dylan. Curious about his reaction, I answered the phone. Emily! Where are you? I don't think I need to tell you that. Stop joking around. I think you're the one who's joking. Did you check the table? The divorce papers? Yes, those. My name is already on them. Fine. Then we'll get divorced. With that, Dylan hung up. The next day, Dylan sent a photo of the signed divorce papers. I felt relieved, but still had things to do. I immediately contacted a lawyer to get back the money he had used without permission. About a month later. What do you mean move out? A panicked call from Dylan came early in the morning. It means just that. I signed the lease, after all. I can do whatever I want with it, right? I can't just accept that. Come back here now. That's impossible. We're divorced, remember? I thought it was time to say everything I wanted to Dylan. Also, I'm getting the money you used back through my lawyer. You did what? Yes. I don't need to hold back anymore. So, I'll do as I please. Who do you think allowed you to live like this? I certainly don't think it was thanks to you. Even over the phone, I could tell Dylan was furious. But his anger couldn't change the reality. Just get out of that house quickly. It's not yours anymore. You'll regret this. He hung up, but I wasn't bothered. In fact, I laughed out loud. What happened? Sorry. That was him just now. And what did he say? Of course, he was angry. Told me that I'd regret this. What's that supposed to mean? It's funny, isn't it? After that, Dylan, unable to do anything, had to leave the house. He truly got what he deserved. Apparently, Dylan moved back to his parents' house, but that was a mistake. Dylan's hell was far from over. The next day after Dylan contacted me, the lawyer informed me that we could formally recover the money. It looked like we could also claim compensation for all the trouble he had caused. How dare you do this to us? Huh? The call from Rebecca was full of complaints. Thanks to you, we're in trouble. We can't make our payments now. How are you going to fix this? That's unfortunate. But it's no longer my problem, and you'll have to resolve it on your end. You should pay in my place since it's your fault. Absolutely not. If you had any gratitude for the help we gave you, you should repay that kindness. I don't feel I owe you anything, so I'm fine. Goodbye. This time, I was the one to hang up. It was a truly liberating moment. This outcome should have been easy to predict. A family all lax about money was bound to collapse eventually. Blinded by immediate desires, they failed to see the reality of their situation. We finally got our money back. Yes, but we couldn't make the college payment in time. It's okay. I'll try again next year. Mike was incredibly positive. Seeing him like that lifted my spirits. Later, I heard that Dylan and his family, unable to pay their debts, filed for bankruptcy. They ended up losing their house and were left wandering with no assets. I don't even know where they live now. They filed for bankruptcy. Seems like it. It's their own responsibility. Well, it's not our concern anymore. Dylan was also interviewed by the police but was just questioned. The police couldn't intervene further. However, this incident reached his workplace, and Dylan was apparently fired. He'll probably regret this for the rest of his life. I'm determined to keep moving forward with Mike, working together as a team.